since we've already talked about, we've kind of introduced the concept of variables, and we've talked about how to take written expressions into equations. We're now going to be solving some equations with variables in it. So in these, you'll see that for each variable, each letter, there is a number associated with it. So it tells you that m is 7 and n is 8. What we're going to do in each of these equations is replace those variables with the number that it represents, that it equals. So each of these variables, these letters, are representing a number value. So when we insert them into the equation, I always like to use parentheses so that we don't get any of our numbers and symbols mixed up. So looking at this first one, we have n squared minus m. So instead of n, I'm going to add parentheses, squared minus, and then instead of this m, I'm going to put parentheses as well. So my first step is to go ahead and replace all the variables with parentheses. So it says that m is 7. So wherever there's an m, I'm going to replace it with a 7. And then wherever there is an n, I'm going to put 8. So now we have an equation with no variables in it. 8 squared minus 7. So 8 squared means 8 times 8. You can also put that in your calculator, which would give you 64. Minus 7. And 64 minus 7 is 57. All right, let's look at number 2. So it says QP plus Q minus P. Use P equals 7 and Q equals 3. So I'm going to replace all of these variables with parentheses. So then it says Q. So I'm going to look at what Q equals. Q equals 3. So I'm going to replace that first Q with a 3. And then anywhere else where I see a Q, I'm going to replace a 3. So there's a Q right here after this addition sign. So I'm going to replace that with a 3. And then P is 7. So wherever I see a P, I'm going to put a 7. And then we're going to follow our PEMDAS rules, our orders of operation. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We're always going to start with multiplication in this case. So right here we have multiplication because they are right next to each other. So 3 times 7 is 21. Plus 3 minus 7. So we're going to do our addition. So 21 plus 3 is 24. Minus 7 equals 17. And again, with some of these equations, it might be a little intimidating looking at this at first, right? We have 3 times 7 plus 3 minus 7. Just break it up into little sections, right? 3 times 7 is very easy to do. So then we do that part, and then we add on the rest of the equation as we write it in. Then we have 21 plus 3. Oh, that's easy. And each time we're simplifying our equations using very simple math so it doesn't get too complicated. So in this last one, we have x minus y plus 6. So I'm going to add a parentheses wherever I see a variable. And it says use x equals 6. So where this x was, I'm going to add a 6. And y equals 1. So wherever that y is, I'm adding a 1. So I'm going to use my PEMDAS. So remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So according to this, I need to do my addition before my subtraction. So I'm going to do this addition right here. 1 plus 6. This is 7. And then I'm going to drop down the rest of the equation. 6 minus 7. 6 minus 7 will give me negative 1. So again, to keep in mind with each of these, you're going to add parentheses wherever there's a variable, and then add in our numbers that each of our variables represent. And then we're going to use our PEMDAS, our orders of operation, to complete the equation. And it's important to break it down piece by piece like we did in this second one. You know, we just looked at little chunks at a time to simplify the equation more and more. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple examples to try on your own, and then we'll review it together. let's go ahead and look at these examples. So it says v plus x cubed, use x plus 1 and z minus 19. So with these, we're going to, again, start by putting our parentheses in, replacing each of those variables with parentheses. And then we're going to use the number associated with each variable in the parentheses. So x equals 1. So where that x was, we're going to put a 1. And where the z was, we're going to put a 19. Another way you could do this is if you know how to put this in your calculator, you can go ahead and straight from here, put that in your calculator. Be sure to use parentheses, really helps you make sure you have the right order of operations when you put it in your calculator. But you can also do it the old-fashioned way. You can break it up. 1 to the third power gives us 1 plus 19. So 1 plus 19 is 20. So the answer to that first example was 20. All right, the next one, y plus yx, use x equals 15 and y equals 8. So I'm going to replace the variables with parentheses. And then it says x equals 15. So where that x was, I'm going to put a 15. And where the y was, I'm going to put an 8. So then we have 8 times 15. Again, we're doing our PEMDAS, so you want to make sure to do the multiplication first. Plus 8. So 8 plus 120 equals 128. Again, you can put that into your calculator straight from the beginning, just as long as you use parentheses and to make sure you have the right orders of operations. All right, let's look at this last one. Y divided by 2 plus x. Use x equals 1 and y equals 2. So I'm going to use parentheses here and rewrite the problem. So x equals 1, so where that x was, I'm going to put a 1. And y equals 2, wherever the y was, I'm going to put a 2. Using my PEMDAS, I know I have to do my division first. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, plus 1 is 2.